The transition for coaches from college to the NFL can be very rough. While there have been success stories, such as Jimmy Johnson or Pete Carroll, there have been more failures, such as Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer, and Greg Schiano. What about the other way around? There are several coaches that have done this, and like the ones that made the jump to the NFL, success has been inconsistent. Some successful ones include Lane Kiffin or Jim Moore Jr., while others like Lovie Smith or Herm Edwards failed to make the jump, the latter of whom committed many NCAA violations that left Arizona State in a bad place. However, out of all of the disasters that have made the transition either to college or to the NFL, the biggest one might be Bill Belichick at North Carolina. Despite being one of the greatest defensive minds in football history and creating the greatest NFL dynasty ever with the New England Patriots, his North Carolina tenure has been a disaster both on and off the field. So today, I'll go over the situation in Chapel Hill and see if it can get any better. Let's get started. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Thanks. Coming into the offseason, UNC fired Coach Mack Brown as while the team was okay, they weren't great. While he had a great coaching career, winning a title at Texas, and having success at North Carolina during multiple of his tenures, he was starting to get too old and the team was starting to stagnate. So, how did North Carolina replace an old coach who was past his prime? By hiring an old coach past his prime. After being a defensive coordinator for the New York Giants and a head coach of the Cleveland Browns, he returned to New York to coach the Jets as a defensive coordinator. There they went 500 or above 3 straight years, and the Jets then hired him as head coach. However, famously after one day, he resigned and took the head coaching job in New England. The rest is history. 6 Super Bowl rings, the greatest quarterback of all time, and a dynasty that was able to win for almost 20 years. Even though the Patriots started to decline after Tom Brady left the team, Belichick was still seen as a good coach, even after he parted ways with New England. The Atlanta Falcons even called him for an interview. They ended up choosing Raheem Morris, though. So after a year of not coaching anywhere, he looked toward college football. As his dad was a coach at UNC, he also looked at that school. Ultimately, the Tar Heels would hire Belichick after a coaching search. With an off-season filled with drama from Belichick's girlfriend and saying they were going to be run like the 33rd NFL team, Week 1 arrived. They would get a home matchup against TCU, a team that finished 9-4 the year before, with one of the top QBs in the Big 12 and Josh Hoover. Many celebrities showed up to this game, with UNC alums such as Michael Jordan, LT, and Julius Peppers all showing up. With all this hype, how would it go? On the first drive, everything looked perfect. In 7 plays, they drove down the field with new quarterback Gio Lopez and running back Caleb Hood. Hood would end up punching in the TD to go up 7-0. This was the perfect start to the new era. Add on top of this TCU punting the ball on the next drive, and things were looking great. The new era would be a success, and Bill Belichick would usher in a new era of North Carolina football. This is amazing. Oh, wait. Yeah, it got ugly right after that. That hot start didn't mean anything, and they would end up getting killed. But after all, it was only the first game from a new coach. Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and Steve Sarkisian all didn't have great first years. They will get UNC of Charlotte, but even against them, they didn't impress, only winning 20-3 against a team that's currently 1-7. Then they played Richmond, an FCS school. They finally won with ease, winning 41-6. But players such as Gio Lopez were struggling, and the team didn't look impressive. But it would only get a lot worse from here. Much worse. Against UCF, led by Scott Frost, who had previously been a coach at both Nebraska and UCF, was now leading the team. While they were 2-0, they barely beat a Conference USA team in Jacksonville State, it didn't seem as though they were a great team. They would get destroyed 34-9 as the game got ugly mostly from the jump. Both the passing game and rushing game could not get anything done, and Lopez got benched. Even against a 1-3 Clemson, who had been arguably the most disappointing team in football up to that point, they would get killed yet again. They would be down 28-3 after the end of the first quarter, and unlike the Falcons, Clemson didn't choke their lead. They would be beaten 38-10 when it was all said and done. After they had a much-needed bye week, they would suit up for a Friday night game at Cal. This game was actually close, with it being competitive for the whole game. However, toward the end, the Tar Heels would blow it on this play.
Lopez over the middle. Ball comes out at the very end, loose in the end zone. Cal football, it is won.
Yet again, they would lose. Against UVA, they were in a shockingly competitive game, although they would lose in overtime on this play to fall to 2-5. Even with their win last week against Syracuse on Friday night, it was against a bottom feeder ACC school who has been terrible since their win against Clemson. This was also against a team that started a quarterback that put lacrosse first in college and completed only 4 passes. They did beat Stanford last week, but again, it was against a conference doormat and they didn't win all that impressively. They now need to go 2-1, playing 3 teams that all are above 500. While they had been really bad, it was only Belichick's first year with the team, and it might take some time to build a great team. At least there isn't a whole lot of off-the-field drama. Actually, so far, maybe you thought all the problems with the Tar Heels were only on the field. While Belichick's girlfriend was making lots of noise, that seemed to be the only thing. But it turns out there were lots of problems with the team, and I mean it. Let's go over some of these problems. An article by W. Roll News goes over much of this. This expose revealed a lot of the behind-the-scenes drama that was unfolding. First, this includes preference towards Belichick's recruits, which includes things such as preferential parking for players and family. In particular, the article mentions 2 players who played for Bill's son Steve at Washington, with one of them getting field passes for his family. There is little communication between parents and coaches, with them not really knowing the coaches. As the article mentions, this is something that Mack Brown did much better with. The coaching staff is filled with both Nepo babies and inexperienced assistants. The lack of experience Belichick has seems to be hurting him the most. Players on the non-travel roster are not dressing out for home games, which is very uncommon in college football. While in the NFL this is common with practice squad players, this isn't very common in college. The person that has configured this mess the most is General Manager Michael Lombardi. While he had worked in the NFL's front offices for a long time, he had very little college experience. His only collegiate experience was from 1981 to 1984 as a recruiting coordinator for UNLV. To put that into perspective for how long ago that was, the quarterback for them at the time was Randall Cunningham, and they were in the PCAA, a conference that died in 2000. Sources inside the program say Lombardi is unlikable, and much of the mess of UNC this year lies on him. All of this has meant that the culture is a huge problem, and has already led to talks of Bill getting fired. This has been one of the biggest coaching disasters in history, being up there with the likes of Bobby Petrino and Urban Meyer, but at the college level. Hopefully it starts to turn around. Just because a coach is great at one level of football doesn't mean they'll be great at another level. This has been true both in the past and in recent times. On top of that, It looks like UNC has set their program back years with this hire. If it gets worse, they could have to pay Belichick tens of millions of dollars as part of a buyout. But maybe it won't reach that point. With some closer games recently and a win last week, things look like they're in the right direction. We'll see how the rest of his tenure unfolds.